Dr. Robert Grupe is the author of The Change, a textbook for guided corporate transformation, and Creating the Future, containing his most requested radio commentaries. Featured in Who's Who in America, he has given keynote presentations at Oklahoma City University, the University of Central Oklahoma, and Oklahoma State University, among others. For 6 years, he hosted the television program Creating the Future on Cox Cable. A father with 4 children, all served by the Oklahoma City educational system, Dr. Grupe has a personal and abiding interest in the work of the Oklahoma City Educational Television Consortium.
We're going to highlight several innovative hands-on educational programs that strengthen the learning experience and expand valuable skills. With me is Tiffany Smith, who is the Assistant Professor of Public Safety Department at OSU-OKC. And one of the programs, one of the degrees, is the Political Science degree with crime scene investigation option, focusing on technical aspects of scientific investigation. But Tiffany, it is scientific focus, but there are hands-on parts of this program.
Yes, there are many hands-on parts to the program. While the degree plan requires 74 credit hours of classes, you have lecture classes in addition to hands-on classes where we're actually having the students apply the skills they learn in those lecture classes.
Do you find some students coming in with kind of a romantic attitude toward crime scene investigation?
Yes, a lot of our students come in because they've seen the shows such as CSI and things, and they think that's what they want to do because they think those shows are portrayed correctly. And obviously they're not real life. So when they come in, we meet the first day of class and discuss those aspects and discuss what's good about those shows and what's incorrect about those shows. So while the show has really brought a lot of students into the program, and we do have to direct them on what is real life.
That is not always solved in 60 minutes.
Definitely not. Sometimes it could be many years.
Tiffany, your background is interesting because you have a real hands-on background in what you teach.
Yes. Yes, I was a technical investigator, which is a term for crime scene investigator for Midwest City Police Department for almost 15 years before I started teaching at OSU-OKC. So I try to take that aspect to the students to show them what will be expected of them in the field. So
how does this, I'm assuming then that the students kind of settle down to real life as they start the program and realize that, that there's more to this as far as the complexity. You know, we're talking about crime scene photography, blood stain pattern analysis, many different aspects.
Yes. With each one of the courses that's hands-on, they will actually do the experiments and the work on that, so they'll see that why you don't solve a crime in 60 minutes or something, because there's a lot of analysis that's required for the evidence. While I think sometimes they might be somewhat discouraged because you tell them it's not like CSI, once they start getting into the hands-on courses, they enjoy it more than what they enjoy the show CSI.
Well, the entirety of the whole process would be enough to keep anyone busy.
It definitely keeps them busy. The degree plan is 74 hours, and a lot of time a typical associate's degree is 62 to 66 hours. So we have added a couple more classes to have them more skilled when they find a position with the local agency.
And so what are the opportunities here in the state? We'd of course like everyone to stay in the state of Oklahoma to you know, continue to build our economy.
Yes, each agency handles their crime scene investigators differently, and there are some agencies that don't have specific crime scene investigators because of their manpower and budgeting, but there are many that do have crime scene investigators. Some agencies hire civilian crime scene investigators, and what I mean by that is they are not commissioned police officers. There are agencies, though, that hire their crime scene investigators because they are police officers, and it's an assignment for them. If there's a position open in their crime scene investigation unit, they could apply for that assignment, and if they're selected, then they'll become an investigator for the department. The trend seems to be, though, going more toward the civilianized crime scene investigation programs at agencies.
Well, and that makes it more of an open field.
Definitely.
But why are they doing that? Why are they going more toward citizens?
The national trend a lot is looking at a civilianized crime scene investigator is more focused on evidence and could possibly be considered less biased in situations than someone who maybe was a patrol officer and then was assigned into a crime scene unit. And while I believe either one could be, would do the right thing with evidence and let the evidence speak for itself. The trend across the United States seems to be more civilianized.
That is an interesting concept, and I can see that point that you were just bringing out. There's a lot in here about hands-on from the standpoint that they get to work mock crime scenes. Let's talk about that.
Yes, in each one of the courses, they will work aspects of a crime scene. For instance, our technical investigation course, and we put people wanting to be patrol officers or crime scene investigators through that course. What we do is do it by steps. The first day of class, they may learn how to take field notes, and second day of class, we may learn how to do a crime scene sketch. Eventually, they'll learn how to collect evidence and to use alternate light sources looking for evidence, and we'll do each thing in steps. By the time we get to the end of the semester, they will have actual crime scenes they must work, applying all of those skills they learned throughout the semester. And then they actually go through and have to testify in a mock court trial and testify to their findings.
So you take it through the whole process?
Yes.
To a courtroom, a mock courtroom?
Yes. Yeah, I feel like you don't want your students, when they get into the profession, you don't want the first time they've had to testify in front of someone to be an actual court case. And so we really try to focus on courtroom testimony and what would be expected of them. In the program, there are 2 different classes where they have to do courtroom testimony, and they're critiqued, and we go over that, and we try to go over techniques that will help them testify better in cases.
So also there is the opportunity for CLEAT while they're going through the program. Yes.
The program is set up in 2 different ways. The person who wants to do the crime scene investigation emphasis can also complete the requirements to become CLEAT certified. In our state, it's CLEAT who certifies our police officers.
And let's talk about, so people understand what CLEAT certification is.
CLEAT is the Council of Law Enforcement Education and Training. They are mandated by the state to train our local police officers. And many times we hear about CLEAT when officers are hired on at an agency and they are sent to the academy for how many ever weeks, and they go through all the skills, and then they go back to their agency and then start applying those skills. Our program is basically their academy. We have a collegiate officer program in which they will get all of those skills and the same skills you get in the CLEAT Academy, but they'll also obtain that associate's degree with that.
Now, is that optional or just an additional opportunity?
For the CSI program, it can be optional. We have some students maybe based on age. They may be concerned on whether or not they can become a police officer, or if they have any disabilities or injuries, previous injuries that might prevent them from being a police officer. They can substitute those skills classes with more crime scene investigation courses, and then do the civilian route and not actually have the opportunity to be CLEAT certified, but still obtain the degree and become a crime scene investigator.
How long has this program been offered?
The crime scene investigation program has changed just in the last 2 years. It's been offered for quite some time, but with it giving the option now to become CLEAT certified or not is a new option that's only been in place about 2 years.
What about technology? How is technology changing? If we talk about DNA, we talk about bloodstain pattern or fingerprints. The technology, I guess, we're having to stay up with that.
Definitely. Technology has really enhanced crime scene investigation. It speeds up the whole DNA process for us. DNA has changed over the last 20 years, and it has been sped up due to technology. Computers, we use things like computer forensics investigating our cases, and it's not just in cases where we're concerned with subject matters like child pornography or counterfeiting. We look at computers in many types of cases. Databases are a real important role when it comes to crime scene investigation. We need those DNA profiles in the system or those fingerprints in the system to compare to, and so technology has really helped with that.
It sounds like you have the didactic, you have the lecture portion and the hands-on portion, I would say balancing each other out or complementing each other.
Definitely. Of course, the students really enjoy the hands-on portion more, and they have to have that lecture portion, so when we do the hands-on portion, we're efficient.
How soon do they get to do, I mean, you've got to entrench them to where they're ready for the hands-on.
Well, it actually starts relatively early, because even in the Intro to Forensic Science course, which is the course that we recommend them take their first semester, While it is a lecture course, they're going to get exposed to crime scenes and crime scene photographs and videos in which they'll need to watch and then give their perspective in a class participation discussion as to how they would handle that crime scene. So the hands-on part starts relatively early.
Something that interests me is this describes the fact that the students, as you say, they react to scenarios in a skills application while being assessed by members of law enforcement. That's got to be an interesting situation.
It is. It makes the students very nervous and to think about their being assessed in that manner, but it provides such good feedback for our program and the students, and it really helps them with their career. They will have already gone through certain scenarios prior to us ever putting them in front of those law enforcement personnel. So we prepare them for that, but they have to go in and they read about a certain scenario and they have to go in front of these law enforcement officers and perform a task. And those officers are just verifying that they know how to appropriately apply those skills, and how they handle the scenario is critiqued. And we also go over that with the students afterwards.
Is there an evolution, you think, as time goes along as to how the program will continue to build and grow, the numbers that are in the program, the opportunity for individuals to go through the program?
Yes, just in the 3 years that I've been there, we've already seen a really large increase in the number of students that want to go through crime scene investigation courses. I teach 2 sections of Intro to Forensic Science, and again, that's their beginning course, and both of those sections are full this semester. And so as I've been there longer, we have many more students that are going through and more graduating in the program.
Speaking of graduating, any stories or any observations as far as how you've seen some of the students be able to move then into the actual world of work?
As of yet, I've only had a couple of students that have been hired on as agencies, and they've been hired on as police officers right now, and that I have actually taught. I have a student who is in the hiring process with a local agency to get hired on as a crime scene investigator right now. So once I get to speak with that student about that, it'll really benefit our program to say, what were they expecting of you when you started, and how can we enhance our program?
Exactly. That's where you begin to get positive feedback from it. But I imagine you do get feedback as time goes along from students who are going through that did not realize just how complex the process is.
Yes, and we definitely like that feedback from the students. We will ask them, of course, at the end of each course that they take, they will do a questionnaire about the class and about what they learned in the class and about the instructors. And when they complete the program, we give them a questionnaire that we want them to fill out on what could be changed in the program, enhanced. And then once people get hired on, if we're aware that they've been hired on at an agency, we like for them to do like an employment survey to come back to us and tell us, this is how we could enhance this program, or this is what really helped me in this program, to help me be successful in obtaining a career in the field.
As you think about what you went through being in the field and doing this, how has that become a part of how you've developed the process in teaching students?
Well, I bring in people that are in the field currently, and so they can see the real world experience, and not just that I was once an investigator, but there are people out there that are doing that now. And so I bring those people in to talk to students, and we try to use guest speakers in several of the crime scene investigation courses so they can ask questions of those people that are actually in the field. So they're not just getting it from a professor perspective, but also a real world perspective.
But you're more than a professor, because you do have a real world application, but you're bringing in networking.
Yes, yes. And we definitely work off of networking. We try to do that to recruit students, and we try to do that to keep our students. So if they can come see those people in the field, it helps them hopefully obtain a job somewhere later.
And having those people come in and talk with the students and help them to really see the level of reality of the whole process.
Yes.
And what can happen. Well, we're going to have you back.
That sounds
our time has gone by very quickly. Tiffany Smith, Associate Professor, Public Safety Department at OSU-OKC. So glad you could be here.
Thank you very much.
As we talk about hands-on learning, let me tell you, there's something that we're all going to want to get our hands on most likely, and that's compressed natural gas retrofitted vehicles. I have with me Charles Lawson, who's the automotive instructor at Francis Tuttle Technology Center. And Charles, we were talking before the program about how much this technology has changed since the 80s, but how it's even more important today. And the state of Oklahoma requires an alternative fuels technician license to work on alternatively fueled vehicles. Let's talk about that.
That's right. The state does require a license to work on vehicles, and the purpose of the license is so that technicians can safely work on those newer systems without injuring themselves. So the state has developed a licensing program, and Francis Tuttle actually offers that as part of the automotive service program that is out there, and specifically it's in the engine performance part of the course. The program is about 2 weeks long, and it covers everything from how the compressed natural gas system operates, the function of the system, all the way to how to install a system, safely inspect it, and maintain those systems.
So it's a condensed but yet very thorough.
It is. It is very thorough, and like I said, we really focus in on the safety features. The systems, they're very safe if you are educated on how to work on those. Our pressure is up to about 3,600 pounds, and so we have to be respectful of the pressure and of the flammable gas there.
How long has this course been offered?
This is the second year that we're offering it, and again, it's part of the engine performance course. So about twice a year, we actually go through the natural gas setup.
We were talking before the program about the evolution of this technology, because back in the 80s, they were doing retrofitting.
Sure.
Let's move through that, and what are some of the technical improvements that have occurred since then?
Okay, well, in the 80s, natural gas, it was kind of a big thing, and they were taking vehicles that were carbureted or throttle body injected and converting those over to kind of a very basic mixer type natural gas system. They worked pretty well, but over the years the technology has changed. So now instead of just using a mixer, which just kind of draws it in with a vacuum, we're actually using a fuel injection system. So the onboard computer actually controls the injection of the natural gas. We can monitor it, control it, and on vehicles that are either bi-fueled or dedicated natural gas systems, we can switch between natural gas and gasoline to kind of extend the range. That way we don't have to rely on, if we go out of state or go somewhere where there isn't natural gas available yet, we can still fuel our vehicle.
And that is an issue.
It can be.
Right
Yes,
now.
right.
But finding the filling stations that would work if I leave from here and want to go to Lubbock, for example.
Sure, sure.
or wherever, you have to take that into consideration. But isn't that part of the evolution of what's happening, though, that there will become more filling stations?
Absolutely. The state of Oklahoma and a lot of private industry here in Oklahoma, they've really stepped up and put some money into providing fuel stations for natural gas vehicles. We are currently, I think, second in the nation with the amount of fuel stations we have, and every few months you'll see new fuel stations pop up. So I think in Oklahoma, down the I-35, I-40 corridor, and kind of in the central area, you're in pretty good shape for filling up with natural gas.
So some of the stations along the way, they're going to have that capability.
Absolutely, they do now. On-Q, Loves, there are also some public filling stations that you can fill up with as well through the state.
And your background that got you interested in doing this, you've worked with CNG vehicles.
I have spent several years in the fleet industry, and kind of cut my teeth on natural gas back then. It really got me interested. We got to see how those systems worked. We realized that the fuel was less expensive. It was also cleaner burning, and it makes sense as a good public use fuel.
Cleaner burning, and what are some of the other positive? There are several positive applications to going to this.
There is. Using a natural resource that we can get right here in Oklahoma, it's going to be better for our state and our country, and it's going to lessen our dependence on foreign oil. So it also, helps keep our environment clean with less exhaust gas emissions, and just kind of keeps our money here at home.
So what would be the advantage for somebody saying, okay, I want to get my car retrofitted? What do they need to do?
All right, to get your car retrofitted, there are several installers here in the state, and you can call those guys up and ask them to have an estimate. And really what kind of the steps that they go through, if you're going to retain the gasoline usability of the car, they're going to add an additional fuel tank, additional fuel lines, a separate set of fuel injectors, and a computer control module that will control that system. So that's really the best way to go at this time. There are also some tax incentives. You can get, I believe it's about half of the cost of the system as a rebate.
Wow.
So just for converting over.
And what you're describing, that's all a part of this training process.
It is, yes.
Understanding how they will know how to do this.
Yes, they will. They'll learn how to, bend the tubing, inspect systems for leaks. We'll go over the labeling, where all the labels go. We don't quite get into like the fuel management yet. It's more of a safety and installation safety course there, but I think they'll come away with a really good working knowledge of the natural gas system.
And where you worked with public entities with large trucks.
Yes.
And how did that work out for them?
It worked out very well. In fact, it's a national company that I worked for, and they have, not only did they purchase vehicles, in the 80s, in the 90s, but even recently, as their fleet is, wearing out, they're replacing most of their newer vehicles with natural gas. So, from a fleet standpoint, again, there's a really large amount of savings in fuel costs over the years.
So what do you see as far as interest in this program? What are you seeing?
We have seen a lot of interest. There has been, when we talk about natural gas, people around the state, it kind of piques their interest. They know that's something we have a lot of. And so, when the word gets out that Francis Tuttle offers a program like this, we get a lot of phone calls. And we've had, several students go through our program. They've gone right to work in the industry, into natural gas conversion companies and things like that. So it's been a good thing. I think it'll just continue to grow. And we have, I think, about 700 technicians licensed in the state right now, and every year we see those numbers increasing.
How many in your program right now?
We've had a good handful go through the program. We have a very high passing rate. Now, the students do have to meet some minimum requirements to go through the program and receive their license. They must go through engine performance and an electrical class. That would be one requirement. The other option would be to complete a year of experience in the field working on cars as a living there. So if you meet those requirements, then you can set through the compressed natural gas course and set for your test and things.
And you may have already, well, as a matter of fact, I'm not sure if we did yet, but we were talking about 5 hands-on components that the students have to master even before they can set for the state exam.
Yes. So during the training, we cover 5 different aspects that a committee has determined these are really important things for a compressed natural gas technician to learn. One would be the installation of the system, which includes pipe bending and fitting installations. We do a complete system leak check using the correct solution. It's a non-ammonia-based soap. There is also we inspect the labeling to make sure that the labeling is correct. And we do have, several schools in the state that offer this program. And all the schools that have offered the program have stayed full. Our enrollment numbers have been good, and then also the employment opportunities have been very high for those technicians.
Well, let me ask you this. Let's daydream here for a minute. What do you see in the future, if we just extrapolate and go into the future with this, as far as any improvements in the technology, and what can eventually be done to make this even more popular and easier for people to have and to be able to enjoy?
Okay, well, some things that we've seen over the recent years, we've seen the introduction to liquid or refrigerated natural gas, LNG. What they do is they chill the natural gas to where it actually turns into a liquid state, and they can store more of the fuel on the vehicle, so that increases the range of the vehicle. Some of the fleets are actually going to that to get equivalent range from the vehicle that they would of gasoline. So that's one advancement. Some other things, on cars that are strictly natural gas, we can actually do some engine modifications to get equal or even increased horsepower ratings on those engines. We can increase the timing, the compression, and things like that to make those engines run really well.
Global warming is a big issue
Yes.
now. And isn't emissions a part of what has to be looked at so very, very closely?
It is.
And once again, how does CNG play a role in that?
Well, with CNG, just the natural properties, it's a cleaner burning fuel. So, we can take a gasoline vehicle, whenever it's converted to natural gas, that car, if it's tuned correctly, it's going to run much cleaner than it did on gasoline. So that's really going to help the environment and help our manufacturers meet those standards that the EPA and the government put out there for them to meet.
Do you see further advances in technology as far as the mechanics of how this is done, or do you think it's pretty much where it's going to be?
I'm sure that there will be advances in technology. They really have come a long way with how they deliver the fuel into the engine. It's very user-friendly. It's been very dependable. But I'm sure that in the future we're going to see some improvements there.
We see so much computerization. That could
Yes.
be another element, I guess, that could come in.
Yes, and they're using the computerized fuel injection. They've even converted diesel engines to natural gas. They'll put spark plugs in those, and the high compression and those heavy-duty motors that can really do well on that gas.
Oh, it's an open field in the future, and when your individuals go through this alternative fuels technician licensing, what's the pass rate?
The pass rate has been 100% so far, so we're excited about that. I feel like we do a good job at the school in preparing those guys for success.
And I imagine you get some good positive comments.
We do, absolutely. Yeah, we get guys. Students come through the program. They're very excited to learn. They're always impressed with the way the systems work, with the technology that's in existence right now, and they're excited to go to work in the industry.
This is such an exciting field because it can really make a difference in many different ways. And Charles, thank you so much.
All right, thank you
for being here. Charles Lawson, Automotive Instructor, Francis Tuttle Technology Center. And we've been talking about the state of Oklahoma requiring alternative fuels technician license to work on alternative fuel vehicles, and that's being done. As we overview hands-on learning, there's nothing more hands-on than childhood development. And with me today is Dr. Mary McCoy, who is the Director of Child Development and Lab School at OSU-OKC. Dr. McCoy, the Child Development Center and Lab School is recognized as one of the nation's outstanding centers. Let's talk about that.
Yes, it is recognized as an outstanding center in the nation. We are nationally accredited with the National Association for the Education of Young Children, which began in the 1980s, and we were one of the first to become accredited nationally. We also began in the 1970s when the child development as a major in the colleges was just becoming introduced. And so we were on the ground floor with that.
And hasn't there been a lot of evolution in thinking and the construction of what child development should be over the years?
There certainly has, and there's also been a lot of educating people on how children learn. Children have not been on Earth very long, and they learn through their experiences, so we really need to target what their experiences are and try to enhance those.
You outlined to me before the program a lot of your experience, and of course also, as with myself and even more with you, you have children.
Yeah, yes.
Isn't that a learning experience?
Yes, it is. I have 7 children. They're all totally different. So they all have different ways of learning, and I think that's important too.
Let's talk about different ways of learning and how this is incorporated into the Child Development Center and the lab school.
Well, we have children that are kinesthetic. Those are the wigglers. They like to move around, and they need to do that in order to learn. And so sitting them at a desk and trying to get them to just do paper and pencil things is not appropriate for them. So we try to do developmentally appropriate activities. Then you might have the linguistic learner who likes to sit and read a book and use a pencil, and so we work with those children. So meeting their needs and their learning style is very important in order to recognize that and to educate the children. We're not babysitters. Early childhood is actually educating and caring for the children.
So it's kind of recognizing what's in that child and what the strengths are that can be nurtured.
Definitely. And we listen to the children and what their interests are. For example, one time we were outside looking at worms, digging a garden, and they started asking questions about the worms. So we developed a project on worms, brought worms into the classroom, and we had the worms with us all winter and made a worm house and investigated it and then put them in the garden later. So,
all a part of learning
yes,
skills.
it is.
Let's talk about the involvement in the SMART program, and what does that stand for?
SMART is Single Mothers Academic Resource Team. It's funded by the Women's Foundation of Oklahoma, who have a vision for systemic change for mothers and fathers, single parents, through education. And so we have a coordinator that goes throughout the state, and she encourages people to start programs at their colleges as well. But at Oklahoma City Community College, she recruits students to become part of this program. It's a support group for the parents. She finds areas where they need help, for example, maybe Section 8 housing, and she brings someone in to talk to the parents about that. But it's support for them.
This is a real-life issue today with single parenting.
Yes, it is, and it's just growing more and more. But they need that support from other people.
So this is a program that is engendered for that purpose.
Yes, it was. So we're very proud of our coordinator. She was just for OCCC, and now she's reaching out across the state.
So there may be more opportunities throughout the state for this to be implemented.
Yes. As a matter of fact, I think she's going to Durant this week to speak to a group of people about starting another program.
Also, another issue is the partnership with WIC and other outside partnerships at helping women and children, if we could speak to that.
Well, what we did in the Child Development Center, we received the old John Glenn Elementary School from Western Heights, and one hallway houses the children. We have a licensing for 140, but our other wing is for other entities. So we have the WIC program in that hallway. We have the Oklahoma Mental Health Association for Infants and Toddlers endorsement program housed in there. We also have the Early Childhood Association of Oklahoma is housed in there. So we have different groups of people and organizations that can help all our parents. So the WIC program is one of the programs that is in that hallway.
And let's talk about some of the folks who are teachers and a part of this,
Yes.
this program.
Well, in 2005, our national association, the Accreditation Association, said that our teachers need to have bachelor's degrees. And so we pursued that. Our teachers had associate degrees, and so they had several years to obtain a bachelor's degree, and they did. Several went on to have master's degrees. And even our teacher assistants, we have some of the teacher assistants have bachelor's and master's degrees. So they're well educated and they understand children. And they are also the mentors for the students that come into the program as lab students. And we have students from quite a few different colleges and different disciplines. It might be the nursing program from OU or the child development program from OCCC. We have a number of people come through.
What's been the growth process of the number of students in the program?
Well, we feel we're growing. We have another program in there, the Scholars for Excellence in Child Care, and the coordinator of that program's job is to recruit people that are in the field in child care facilities and bring them to college so that they can get an education in child development. So that is growing tremendously.
Something else I'm thinking about here is asking a little about the student schedule child care.
Student schedule, we were challenged by our president, Dr. Seacrest, to have quality care for all students, that our student parents. And so we opened up student scheduled child care. There are 3-hour blocks a time, so while they're in class, their child can come to the center. And they're getting educated too, so they're both coming. We had a little girl one time said she wasn't coming back the next semester because they were graduating. So, meaning her parent was graduating and so was she. So we have that available to the students, and it's open in the evening as well as the daytime, Monday through Thursday evenings.
And I want to go back to hands-on learning experiences, just to talk about some of, really, I don't think it's going above and beyond to call them life-changing experiences that you've seen through this Child Development Center, and some that you might want to share.
Well, we do have life-changing experiences, not just for the children, but for the parents and the students as well, and for our teachers. We've seen children come in that maybe weren't even verbal, and by the time they left, they're verbal, they're writing, they're interacting with others. But I think probably the most important thing for children today is that interaction with others. And hands-on learning provides that. They're able to solve problems together, whether they're social problems or academic questions that the children have. And so they learn how to interact, how to communicate with one another. We have children that maybe come in very aggressive, and by the time they leave, they're learning how to use their words and how to talk to others and solve problems that way. So those are life-changing. And I think they're very important as a foundation for these children as they go on.
You were telling me that some time back, what helped you and motivated you to have a vision to be a part of this was working with a young girl.
Yes, when I was a teenager, I was 13, and I went to a camp as a volunteer to help with children with disabilities, and there was a little girl whose hands were not functioning as they should, and my job was to hold her hand and squeeze it around my fingers, and her name was Susie. And I worked with Susie all summer, and at the end of the summer, Susie squeezed my hand by herself without my help. And it was at that point I figured that I was good at this, and I really wanted to work with children.
Isn't it amazing how we gain inspiration from circumstances?
Yeah, and just remembering something like that from so long ago.
And as you work through the Child Development Center, I would imagine that we're certainly wanting all of the instructors, the folks who are working with the children, to have something maybe within themselves that gives them that kind of inspiration.
They need a passion. They need to want to work with the children, and they need to want to have those children change, and they need to want to care for them and educate them. But it's not enough just to say, I love children. You really need to be educated in that area.
Let's look in the future, maybe be a little future-oriented here for a second. What do you see happening in the future with the Child Development Center and Lab School?
Well, I want it to be, or I would like to see it be a place where, I guess starting with the state of Oklahoma, when someone thinks about child care and learning how to work with children, that they think of the OCCC Child Development Center, that this, the building that we're in, which is the Family and Community Education Center, that they would know that's the place they can go to learn more about being with children and what's best for children.
Take us through a tour in our mind, as though you were walking into the door of that facility. Take us through a tour and tell us a little about what happens in different areas.
Okay. Well, when you come in the front door, you're going to have to check in and put your name down, so in case of fire, we know where you are. That's our first thing. But we have 2 secure doors. The first secure door will take you to a hallway. You would turn left, go down the hall, and you would see these different organizations I mentioned, the WIC program, the Mental Health Association program, and the SMART program, single parents, and there are also college classrooms in that area. There are rooms for parents to go to study in between classes. We have a breastfeeding room for parents. We have conference areas in that hallway, so we have a lot going on. We also have some GED classes taking place in that hallway. Then you would go in another direction. It's sort of, if you're looking from an airplane, you're looking at a capital U. And so I'm going to take you down the center, the bottom of that U, down the hallway, and you're going to pass security. We always have a security person on our staff with us. And then we'll pass the infant toddler playgrounds, and then we'll go on to the next hallway up the other arm of the U, and that's where the children are. We do have a meeting room that holds at least 50 people that we offer for different programs to come in and do training in there. Our classrooms have multimedia, in not the children's rooms, but the others. And then you enter the children's hallway. That's another secure door, and there are 13 classrooms down there, and we're using 9 of them right now. And the children all down the left-hand side are all infants and toddlers, and down the right-hand side you'll have all the preschool, and they're multi-age. So an infant toddler room has a child 6 weeks to 34 months, and then down the multi-age classrooms for the preschool would be 35 to 5 years old. And then they stop once it's time for kindergarten. We don't have after school.
One other thing that I think is very important is inclusion of the parent in what the child is doing and through the Child Development Center. How do you see this happening, and how is it emphasized?
That's an important question. We do have a family staff committee, so parents are very involved in planning events, and they also work with us on accreditation. They give us surveys, they give us input. But they're free to come whenever they'd like to. It's an open classroom that work with the children, have lunch with the children. But we also have training for parents. We have a program called Families at Promise, and we have teachers that do some training on how to raise your children, how to have positive guidance techniques, and what are good things for children to eat, and to help the parents with their children on a day-to-day basis. So they're very involved in the program.
And this is something that, if they're at the Childhood Development Center, that's just part of their life, but the parent is the rest of their life.
Yes.
This has been so good, and I appreciate you being here. Dr. Mary McCoy, Director of Child Development and Lab School, OCCC. We'll have you back later.
Thank you for having me.
You know, it's exciting that MetroTech has the first student-led farmers market in Oklahoma City. Talk about hands-on. Jona Squires is with me. She's the horticulture teacher, and also Leslie Cooksey, the entrepreneurship teacher, and is delighted to have both of you here. And Jona, let's talk about horticulture and how this comes in to be an important part of everybody's life.
Well, it's great because we can't have a day without horticulture and agriculture. And so for my students, the opportunity to see where their food comes from, to be a part of that process, and to see those results quickly is pretty phenomenal. And so with our program, for those of you, if you haven't been to the Spring Lake campus at Metro Career Academy, we have a greenhouse facility that's about 24 by 36. So we have an actual learning lab right there where we start our seeds. We have a garden area that's a 20 by 40 area that we actually, through the Department of Agriculture, we have a plasticulture grant. So we have rows and beds of plants. We have fall gardens and spring and summer gardens, which is part of the farmer's market kind of concept was, what do we do with the produce? Can we show the kids how to sell it? Can the entrepreneurship program help to market it? And can culinary arts demonstrate cooking and healthy techniques of cooking those vegetables? And so that's kind of the accumulation of the whole project and kind of where we got started.
And I certainly want to get back to that, but for a moment, Leslie, a little bit about the understanding the entrepreneurship process.
Yes, the entrepreneurship program helps out with the farmers market and creating a list of vendors, contacting potential vendors, organizing the event as far as like the setup and the promotional means. We have a Facebook page that people can follow us on. At our school, we also have a courtside cafe that the students work and learn hands-on skills about running their own business. And so I feel like the farmers market gives them a platform for that as well.
So you have a number of activities that are
Yes.
going on at
Yes.
the same time. I sense there's some networking involved in that.
Yes, definitely.
And all of these entrepreneurs, now when you call them entrepreneurs, how are we defining it that way in this situation?
In this situation, the entrepreneurs are local community members who own their own business.
And so if they weren't there with you, they might be doing it someplace else.
Correct. They could be at another farmer's market, or even one of our own vendors has his own convenience store that he runs.
Let's go back to horticulture. How did that become exciting to you?
With what I get to do, and I mentioned growth again, but it's very phenomenal when you see students' growth. And we have student organizations that facilitate our occupational programs. For example, agriculture is either affiliated with FFA or with Trade and Industry or Skills USA, and those students get to do a lot of leadership and other activities, go to the state fair in our horticulture projects, participate in speech contests, a lot of different events, marketing contests, whatever. Well, imagine taking all those events and contests and you put them into a farmer's market. They're learning marketing, they're learning selling, they're learning work ethic, they're learning communication skills, they're learning how to use science principles, chemistry. I can't think of something that cultivates all of these entities into one activity, and we don't do it one time, we're doing it 10 times for the year. We're doing it 5 times this fall, we're going to do it in the spring. And so just for example, every week we go back to the classroom, and I'm sure she does this too, and we sit here and we say, okay, we're going to look at a quality tool here and we're going to say what worked, what do we need to change, what are we going to do this next week, because actually our vendors have increased every week. Our customers coming to the market have increased every week. So our students are seeing there's growth happening with what we're doing, but we're seeing personal development growth, and we're seeing academic growth with our students. That's, I personally think, is facilitated. And I don't think we would see it till the end of the year, end of the semester, and we're getting to see it within the first 9 weeks of the classroom. And so not only does that help us, but it creates industry partnerships. It forms alliances, it creates job opportunities for students that, again, I'm reiterating, not all of our kids are coming from the ideal home situation. Some of these are at-risk kids. And so they're getting an opportunity that maybe for the first time in their life they're having success. And so for us to have that kind of success and then be able to potentially put them in the job market and to continue on their path of a career, isn't that what our job is in the career tech system?
And it's like all of these different activities are like vehicles that allows them to learn what they can do with themselves, to develop themselves professionally and just to develop their lives.
Right. And you get a network of people. You mentioned this with her. You have, to me, it's like a sports team. You have coaches. We have additional coaches helping us, whether it's administration, public relations, whether it's other entrepreneurs going, let me take this kid and let them intern with me. Let me help you to give them more of a sense of a direction because, hey, this gentleman was nice and polite to me. I tell him we have curb service farmer's market. You pull up to our farmer's market, this is what's going to happen. You unload your stuff, you don't unload it. Students are unloading it. Can you imagine pulling up in the limo and they unload your stuff and take it to your, take it, set it up, and then at the end of the day, they're loading up. Imagine pumpkins. Can you imagine a truckload of pumpkins and how heavy they are? And a young lady that's about our age is selling these pumpkins, right? Toby, and you got her from the Norman Farmer's Market. Her biggest thing is coming to our market and not having to touch them. The boys or young ladies in the class help to load and unload those. We then carry them out for the customer. So our students, those work ethics, and again, that exchange of having a network and people supporting them or saying, hey, I need a kid. You got a kid that can come do this for me. What's this young man's name? I can't always make those connections, and those connections are happening a lot quicker and a lot faster.
It's like you're helping these kids to build a sense of direction.
Sure.
And with at-risk individuals who may, like you were saying earlier, have never been in that opportunity before. And so this is significant from the standpoint, we were talking about hands-on learning, that's what we're talking about today. It certainly applies here. Where do you see this going, building and growing?
You know, I would like to say that it's a legacy that establishes something for Oklahoma City and for Metro Tech and for Career Tech in general. I think Leslie she sees the growth with kids as they start a business, whether it's a snow cone business or it's making purses or whatever they might, sell. But we see it launching, and I would like to see that other people do the same thing in other school systems. We see it with a lot of our homeschool systems that, those parents greatly foster that kind of entrepreneurial spirit. We're seeing a local grow movement. You mentioned about your son having his own little, truck business and selling, and we're seeing people want local produce. They want quality products, and all of us want to invest in Oklahoma. We all want to invest in our kids, and we want to invest in the future. I don't want to work till I'm 90. I want to know there's a retirement. I want to know that there's a workforce to support me in that. And so every dime, every minute, everything we can put into these kids to give them those opportunities, that's a betterment for all of us.
It comes back to them in growth, it comes back to the school, but also it comes back to the economic development of the state of Oklahoma. Mm-hmm. Here's what I would find very intriguing from either Leslie or Jona to speak to are some stories of personal growth that you'd like to share. Because it sounds like that's really what all these things are vehicles toward personal growth, achieving, feeling a sense of pride, mm-hmm. of ownership, of having done something, mm-hmm. having achieved something.
I have a couple of stories. Do you have some? I'm going to let you go because I keep talking.
I'll think while you go ahead and go.
Think? Well, I have a couple because we definitely have blended classrooms. But I have bilingual speaking students, about 40% of my population. I have some bilingual and Hispanic students. And we had a big discussion the other day on customer service and what's appropriate. And I got tickled because my kids said, "Are you okay if we speak Spanish when a Spanish customer walks up to the table?" And I said, sure I am. And I said, what's wrong? What are you thinking here? And they said, well, we know sometimes we make others uncomfortable when we say Spanish and maybe they're not Spanish speaking. And I said, okay, so how do you think we should utilize this experience? I said, if you see a customer, and you know what they came up with? They've made name tags. We got name tags this week. They put their name both in English and Spanish. And they also put, if you need help in Spanish, to ask me. And I didn't think of that from a customer service standpoint. So any vendor that may be dealing with someone that's not bilingual, our students can translate. And so here was a student seeing a need and facilitating a need that I hadn't thought of because that wasn't something that was even on my radar. My kids were, and you know what? I can't create that kind of problem. I mean, that is that maximum problem solving of Bloom's taxonomy.
It's also empowerment.
Sure.
You empowered the student to own the process of improvement.
Right.
Rather than something being told to him, do it this way, you allowed him to be creative.
Right.
And that the empowerment is tremendous.
Right. And that confidence in that problem solving, and I gained that same sense of, oh my gosh, they're so much more capable, and I'm as guilty as anybody else for sometimes not thinking they can do it, or a lot of times I think we shove them out there, but we don't always give them the resource or the opportunity. And I think that's where the farmers market, we're seeing the opportunities that sometimes we might have missed, just because it's the real deal. It's business, it's customers, it's meeting a need. If education isn't meeting a need, why are we doing it? And so our market, if we're not meeting a need with the public, why are we doing it? So our kids, again, I couldn't have thought of that one. And I was really proud of them for thinking of that.
And this is why I'm so glad that we're discussing this. People think farmers market, oh yeah, farmers market. But there's much more. There's what's below you see an iceberg. It's what's below what's all that depth of personal achievement, of sense of direction, of helping young people to be able to positively build their lives. Well, anyway, another story.
Well, I'll share one. We talked about the objectives that the students are learning by this hands-on experience in the farmers market. The entrepreneurship students are learning management and promotion and selling, merchandising. Well, we were so busy getting all the vendors together and putting onto this farmers market when my students said, but what are we going to sell? at the farmer's market. And a lot of our students, we said, come from maybe not the ideal home situation, so their self-esteem sometimes is lower. So we bought items for them to make themselves, and they were so excited that first week that they actually got to sell one of their items and promote it. And so I think that brought a lot of boost in their self-esteem and brought them ownership into the farmer's market as well.
We come back to the word ownership, and how powerful is that? I mean, it can literally change lives.
Yes.
I'm ready for another story.
Well, what's funny is like you see competition, which I think is the great thing about America. You know, we're built on that we believe and everybody has an opportunity and we can all compete and we see what happens. And the funny thing is our students we sell produce out of the garden, whatever we're producing right now, okay? But besides that, and she mentioned this, our students got to, actually create some other things to sell. Well, I teach floral design, so we always have some arrangements out there to sell as well. It's not the ideal situation when it's 85 degrees and you got fresh flowers and not a cooler. So, again, that's a challenge for students to resolve. But the funny thing is I'm seeing the students, and she was saying that confidence in them, I'm seeing mine start to develop a competition between, we have shifts of kids that work, whether it's AM and PM. And so the morning class wants to have a competition. And one of the things that they noticed besides selling our product, they said, you know what? Chef cooks a great little taco and the people are thirsty and they're walking around, it's 85 degrees and who's selling water? And I said, well, nobody's selling water. That's a great idea. Do you want to sell water? So guess what? We're selling water this week. And one of the things that they talked about was, how else do we make them thirsty so they'll buy more water? And I said, well, I don't know. What would you think of? Well, we have a popcorn machine.
I was going to say popcorn.
And so we're over here going, well, get the popcorn machine. You can give free popcorn. They'll buy more of your drinks. And so you already saw kids, again, taking that next level of, again, ownership. But also it was a level of competition, which I like because business is competitive.
Absolutely.
There's a reason at our farmers market, and we were talking about this earlier, we don't have 20 people with pumpkins. We really try to be kind of strategic. We might have one, might have two, but for the most part, a lot of our vendors, they're kind of unique with what they're bringing to the table. One lady produces 13 different grapes. Most of them are wine grapes. Well, she has one of the only wine jams and jellies in the state of Oklahoma. So when you meet and see those vendors, they have a unique market and a niche. And so our kids are getting to talk about that, but they're also getting to talk about competition. Well, it's easier to sell bottled water when you don't have competition. Now we talk about price. What are we willing to sell it for? What should we sell it for?
And they're bringing out fresh and new ideas, and our time has gone so quickly. Jona Squires with me, horticulture teacher, and Leslie Cooksey, entrepreneurship teacher with Metro Technology Centers. Delightful to have you here, and we want to hear more as time goes along about the growth of that farmers market. We have looked at several hands-on educational programs that deepen the learning experience and bring more opportunity for student growth and strengthening the Oklahoma economy.